Assalamu alaikum everyone. Today instead we're going to be having a Q&A instead of our usual Mizan lecture series. So as such, we will be taking questions about anything that you might have. You can raise your hand or type the questions in the chat and we'll take it from there. And as usual, you can ask your questions in English or Urdu, whatever is more convenient for you. And you can request your answers to be either in English or Urdu as well.
सर मुझसे किसी ने क्वेश्चन पूछा है, उन्होंने आपका Q&A क्वेश्चन आंसर का एक कोई पुराना सेशन सुना है YouTube पे, उसमें someone asked about barzakh, तो somehow she said कि आपने explain तो वही क्या है जो जनरली हम मतलब सुन रहे हैं आपसे या गामदी साहब से कि वो बस जिनके जो एक्सेप्शनल होते हैं गुड और बैड, तो उनका मामला है या मैसेंजर्स के टाइम के लोगों का, अदरवाइज तो वो ऐसे ही है कि वो लाइक सो रहे हैं और क़यामत में मामलात होंगे। तो सर लेकिन उन्होंने कहा कि लेकिन इस बात के साथ डॉक्टर साहब ने एंड पे साथ कह दिया कि रूहें जो है वो कब्र के इर्द गिर्द भी कहीं घूम रही होती हैं, तो वो कंफ्यूज्ड हैं कि ऐसा एक्चुअली क्या है सूरत हाल सर।
नहीं देखें, वो मुझे अब याद नहीं है कि वो किसका हवाला दे रही हैं और वो मैंने क्या कहा होगा, लेकिन जो बात कुरान से मालूम होती है वो ये है कि जो बरज़ख का इलाका है वो ऐसा ही होगा कि जैसे आपके कब्र के आसपास कहीं इलाका है, या हमें पता नहीं है वो, मगर ऐसा नहीं हो सकता कि वो जो रूहें हैं वो बरज़ख से निकल के हमारे पास या हमारी दुनिया में आ जाएं, क्योंकि कुरान मजीद में ये आता है ना कि जब क़यामत के दिन सूर फूंका जाएगा तो लोग अपनी ही कब्रों से बरामद होंगे। तो जिससे ही महसूस होता है कि उन कब्रों के करीब वो बरज़ख का इलाका होगा और उनसे वो रूहें जो हैं वो दोबारा से उनको नया जिस्म दिया जाएगा। लेकिन ये बात कि वो मंडला रही होती हैं कब्रिस्तान के आसपास, ये तो बात नहीं हो सकती, ये तो शायद उन्होंने गलत समझा हो या मुमकिन है कन्वे किया हो। जी
राइट, थैंक यू सो मच।
Ahmed, please go ahead.
जी सर, मैंने ये पूछना था कि हम माशरे में या जब भी आपस में कोई बात होती है सर, हम शैतान का इतना जिक्र नहीं करते जितना एम्फसाइज अल्लाह ताला ने कुरान मजीद में कहा है कि वो तुम्हारा खुला दुश्मन। तो सर ये उसी का ही वसवसे है कि हम उसको इतना सीरियस नहीं ले रहे, या क्या वजह है?
अब देखें, ये तो उसका ताल्लुक इस चीज़ से है कि कौन सीरियसली ले रहा है कौन नहीं ले रहा। बहुत सारे लोग सीरियसली लेते हैं और जो कुरान से अपना तारुफ रखते हैं, कुरान को जो रेगुलर पढ़ते हैं, उनको पता है उनका सबसे बड़ा दुश्मन इब्लीस ही है और उसी के खिलाफ हम जंग करते हैं। जब हम हज में जाते हैं तो वो देखें वो सिंबलाइज होती है। आप जमरात को जब पत्थर मार रहे होते हैं तो वो इब्लीस ही को समझ के मार रहे होते हैं कि मैं इस शैतान को अपने ज़िंदगी से ख़त्म कर दूंगा और मैं इसको ज़ाहिर है कि कोई किसी भी लेवल पे ये एंटरटेन नहीं करूंगा। तो ये सारी वो चीज़ें हैं कि जो हम अपनी ज़िंदगी में, जैसे हज का एक सिंबलिज्म है, इसी तरीके से हमें मालूम है कि जो आपको आपके अंदर जो बुरे ख्यालात आते हैं या बुरी ख्वाहिशात पैदा होती हैं या बुरे इरादे होते हैं, उसका भी जो मंबा है, सोर्स, वो दो हैं, आपका नफ्स है और शैतान है। और कुरान मजीद में भी जगह जगह इसका जिक्र आया कि आपको अल्लाह ताला की पनाह हासिल करनी चाहिए। और अगर शैतान कोई आपको बुरा ख्याल ले आए तो कुरान कहता है कि फस्तइज़ बिल्लाह, फ़ौरन अल्लाह ताला की रिफ्यूज, अल्लाह ताला की पनाह में अपने आप को ले जाएं। तो कुरान तो इसमें कोई कसर नहीं छोड़ता। अब ये तो हम मुसलमान हैं या पढ़ने वाले हैं कि कितनी इम्पोर्टेंस दें और कितनी अहमियत दें इस मसले को।
सर ये एंग्जाइटीज में उसका कितना अमल दखल होता है शैतान का?
ये एंग्जाइटी एक बिल्कुल अलग चीज़ है। देखिए, एंग्जाइटी तो इंसान का बायोलॉजिकल एक ब्रेन का फंक्शन होता है और उसको अलग से देखना चाहिए। एंग्जाइटी में तो आपको किसी न किसी परेशानी की वजह से, किसी ट्रॉमा की वजह से, और बहुत सारी वजूहात होती हैं, और उसको चेक कराने के लिए आपको किसी साइकोथेरेपिस्ट के पास जाना चाहिए या किसी साइकोलॉजिस्ट के पास। वो ऐसी है जैसे पेट में दर्द अगर आपको हो रहा है तो पेट में दर्द का इलाज किसी मजहबी स्कॉलर के पास तो नहीं होगा ना। तो एंग्जाइटी जो है वो एक ब्रेन की एलिमेंट है, एक नफ्सियाती एलिमेंट है। तो उस नफ्सियाती एलिमेंट के लिए उसके जो डॉक्टर्स हैं, उसके जो माहिरीन हैं, उनसे रुजू करना चाहिए।
Amin,
थैंक यू।
oh, well, if you have any more follow-up questions, raise your hand again. And we don't have that many questions currently. So if the current participants have any follow-up, please feel free to, keep going. Shabnam, please go ahead.
जी सर, सर हम मुस्लिम्स में ऑल ओवर द वर्ल्ड ये इविल आई का कॉन्सेप्ट बहुत कॉमन है। तो सर ये आपके इसके बारे में क्या व्यूज हैं? क्योंकि मुझे ये लगता है कि मैं वेस्ट में या दूसरे जगहों पर नहीं देखती कि छोटी छोटी बातों पे हम ये सोचते हैं कि सर उधर तो कॉन्सेप्ट मुझे लगता है ही नहीं है, तो सर फिर सिर्फ हमें लगती है नजर अगर ये कुछ है तो?
देखिए, नज़र एक नफ्सियाती चीज़ है, वो भी एक पैरासाइकोलॉजिकल फिनोमेना है। ये ऐसी है कि जैसे कोई आपको कोई नफ्सियाती तौर पे एक परेशानी लाहक हो जाती है और उसमें वो लोग जो किसी न किसी पहलू से मुनफ़िल मिज़ाज होते हैं, जो असर कबूल करते हैं, तो वो नज़रों से असर भी हो जाता है। ये ऐसी ही आप इसकी मिसाल समझें कि जैसे इसको हम कहते हैं साइकोसोमैटिक फिनोमेना, जिसमें जो फ़िज़िकल चीज़ें हैं, उनका नफ्सियाती असर होता है। और जैसे आप देखिए कि अगर आपको कोई कहीं अगर आपको बहुत ज़्यादा कहीं शर्मिंदगी या शर्म सी आए तो आप लाल हो जाते हैं। हालाँकि अब देखिए वो लाल होना जो है, वो ऐसा तो नहीं है ना कि आपके अंदर से वो चीज़ पैदा हुई है, वो ख़ारिज में कोई उसका मौसर होता है, यानी कोई चीज़ होती है जो आप पर असर करती है जिससे आप लाल हो जाते हैं, गुस्सा आता है तो आप लाल हो जाते हैं। इसी तरह से अगर अब कोई इम्तिहान आपने देना हो तो आपको महसूस होता है कि जैसे अब आपकी जो वो है ना एक परेशानी है जिसमें आप एक फ़िज़िकल असर होता है, आप पेट जो है बाज़ वक़्त ख़राब हो जाता है परेशानी की वजह से। तो बहुत सारी ऐसी चीज़ें होती हैं कि जो ख़ारिज के अवामिल के नतीजे में आप पे असर करती हैं। उन्हीं चीज़ों में से नज़र भी एक शुमार करनी चाहिए कि कोई आपको लॉन्गिंगली देखे, कोई आपको एनवी से या जेलसी से देखे, तो उसका असर हो सकता है। हम ये तो नहीं मुतहक्किक करके कह सकते कि लाज़िमन ऐसा होता है, लेकिन हम क़यास कर सकते हैं कि शायद इस तरह की कोई चीज़ है। और अगर इस तरह की कोई चीज़ है, तो जब तक साइंस इसका कोई इलाज दरियाफ़्त नहीं करती, तो हम क्या करते हैं? हम अल्लाह ताला की पनाह ही माँगेंगे। इस वजह से अगर आपको कोई चीज़ महसूस हो कि आप अंदर कोई ऐसा फिनोमेना है, कोई परेशानी है या कोई मामला है जो हल नहीं हो रहा, तो पहले तो कोशिश करें उसको फ़िज़िकली हल करें। डॉक्टर से बात करें या रूल आउट करें, जो बहुत सारी बीमारियाँ हो सकती हैं जिसकी वजह से आपको कुछ महसूस हो रहा हो। लेकिन अगर आप महसूस कर रहे हैं कि तमाम आपने जतन कर लिए हैं और ये कोई फ़िज़िकल बीमारी नहीं है, तो ये नफ़सियाती तौर पे ज़ाहिर है एक एलिमेंट हो सकती है, तो उसके लिए आप अल्लाह की पनाह माँगें। आखिरी जो दोनों सूरतें हैं, अऊज़ु बिरब्बिल फ़लक, अऊज़ु बिरब्बिन नास, उसको पढ़ें। नबी सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम ने हमें बहुत सारी दुआएँ सिखाई हैं। जैसे एक बहुत खूबसूरत दुआ है कि अऊज़ु बिइज़्ज़तिल्लाहि व क़ुदरतिही मिन शर्रि मा अजिद, कि अल्लाह ताला मैं आपकी कुदरत और आपकी ताकत की बुनियाद पर आपसे मैं पनाह माँगता हूँ और उस चीज़ को मैं चाहता हूँ कि आप मुझे प्रोटेक्ट करें जो मैं अपने अंदर पा रहा हूँ। अब मुझे नहीं पता वो क्या चीज़ है, लेकिन मैं कुछ पाता हूँ तो मैं चाहता हूँ कि आप मेरी हिफ़ाज़त करें। इसी तरह से और भी दुआएँ हैं। तो इस तरह के मामलात में बस दुआ है। किसी किस्म की
राइट।
सुपरस्टिशन में नहीं पड़ना चाहिए। हम असल में करते ही हैं कि तवाम परस्त हो जाते हैं इस तरह के मामलात में। इसको ये देखना चाहिए कि ये एक ऐसी नफ़सियाती चीज़ है कि अगर साइंटिफिकली इसका कोई इलाज नहीं है, अभी तक दरियाफ़्त हुआ, तो हम इसको बस अल्लाह ताला की दुआ के ज़रिए ही से इसका कोई तोड़ कर सकते हैं। लेकिन मैं आपको ये भी बता दूँ कि 90% बहुत सारे इस तरह के मामलात को इंसान नज़र पे महमूल कर लेता है। हालाँकि उसकी वजह ज़रूरी नहीं कि नज़र हो। बहुत दफ़ा लोग कहते हैं जी कारोबार में नुकसान हो गया, नज़र लग गई। अच्छा जी बीमारी आ गई, अच्छी नज़र लग गई। तो कारोबार में जो नुकसान है, वो बहुत दफ़ा ऐसे-ऐसे अवामिल होते हैं जो आपको पता चल जाते हैं कि आपने प्लानिंग ठीक नहीं की है, मार्केट फोर्सेस ठीक नहीं थी। बीमारी अगर आपको आ गई है, तो उसकी भी वजूहात हैं कि इम्यूनिटी आपकी लो थी या कोई वीकनेस थी। तो अब हम करते ये हैं कि हर चीज़ को जनरलाइज़ करके कहते हैं कि नज़र लग गई है। तो ये हमारी तरफ से एक गलत तज़िया भी होता है। तो बहुत सारे केसेज़ में ये नज़र लगने का जो फिनोमेना है, ये असल में किसी न किसी दूसरी बीमारी की वजह से या किसी यूँ समझ लें कि किसी फैक्टर की वजह से हो रहा होता है। यानी कोई न कोई अगर लॉस या कमी या बीमारी हो रही होती है, तो उसके यानी वजूहात हैं जो आप तज्ज़िया करके पा सकते हैं। तो ये भी देख लेना चाहिए। ये तो चंद जगह होती हैं जहाँ पे आपको ना कॉज़ समझ में आ रही हो, ना वजह समझ में आ रही हो। वहाँ आप इसको महमूल कर सकते हैं। वो भी महमूल कर सकते हैं। ये नहीं कि कोई आप यकीनी तौर पे कह सकते हैं कि शायद नज़र लगी है। लेकिन नज़र लगना एक ऐसी चीज़ है जिसको हम कह सकते हैं कि ये एक फिनोमेना वाक़ई है।
सर जो चीज मुझे कंफ्यूज करती है, बाकी सब तो ठीक है मुझे समझ आता है, जो चीज मुझे कंफ्यूज करती है वो ये है कि हम वेस्ट में क्यों नहीं ये फिनोमेना देखते कि किसी की रीजन ही ना पता
नहीं,
चल रही हो ऐसे।
आपको इसलिए नहीं नज़र आता कि वहाँ पे और तरह की तवाम परस्ती बहुत ज़्यादा है। आप ये
जी
देखिए कि
सर।
सुपरस्टिशन एक ऐसी चीज़ है कि कोई ऐसी दुनिया की कौम नहीं है कि जो सुपरस्टिशन किसी न किसी पहलू से ना रखती हो। तो आप ज़रा
जी।
ज़रा बगौर मुताला करेंगे तो उनके यहाँ भी सुपरस्टिशियस बिलीफ्स मौजूद हैं। हमारे यहाँ चूंकि ये मजहबन नबी सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम से बयान हो गई है ना कि आपने कहा कि अल आइन अल हक, यानी नजर लगना जो है ये बरहक है, तो इस वजह से
जी
मुसलमानों ने इसको अपनी रवायत के अंदर ले लिया और इसको ऐसे ले लिया कि जैसे नबी सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम एक चीज के बारे में कह रहे हैं और उसका कोई इस्लामी तोड़ भी है। चूंकि वो
जी
हमारी
सर
मजहबी रवायत में दाखिल हो गया और वहां से फिर ज़ाहिर तालीम में दाखिल हो गया, तो आपको फिर जगह जगह इसका तस्करा मिलता है। वहाँ
जी
उनकी
सर
मजहबी रवायत में दाखिल नहीं हुआ, वहाँ उनके यहाँ समाजियात में ये मौजूद है। और बहुत सारे लोग हैं, आप देखिए 13th फ्लोर नहीं होता वहाँ पे, बहुत सारे।
जी
इसी तरह उनसे ये बात कि फ्राइडे 13th एक वो कोई फंक्शन नहीं रखेंगे, क्योंकि जुमा जो हो और 13th तारीख हो तो वो कहते हैं इस पे नहुसत होती है। अगर कोई काली बिल्ली आपका रास्ता काटे, अगेन वहां पे सुपरस्टिशन मौजूद है। तो ये सुपरस्टिशन मजहब से वहां पे नहीं आई हुई, यूं कह लीजिए कि उनके यहाँ समाजियात से दाखिल हो गई हैं, लेकिन
जी
मौजूद हैं।
जी सर थैंक यू सो मच सर
Thank you very much. Our next question asks, my understanding is that we are allowed to eat food slaughtered by the people of the book, such as kosher or halal. How do those rules apply for the Christians, and can we eat food slaughtered by a Christian?
So you see, foods which are slaughtered by our Christian brothers and sisters, maybe they are not halal because usually, or I would say, 99.9% cases, they don't slaughter uh, their own animals by pronouncing the name of God. And pronouncing an animal slaughtering an animal while pronouncing the name of God is a condition for slaughter. And I've discussed this a number of times that the reason for this is that we are not allowed to take the life of an animal, and if we have to take the life of an animal, then God says that you have to seek my permission. So when we say Bismillah Allahu Akbar, which makes the animal halal, at the same time slaughter it in a way that all the blood oozes out. So that is something which Christians don't normally do. And that is why, unless specified, yes, there are certain, I mean, there are a lot of Christian countries. For example, I can tell you in Australia, 90% of the meat is halal because they have to export it to Middle East. In New Zealand, almost 95%, if not 100%, there are people who say is the meat is halal because they have to once again export it to Arab countries. Similarly, you'll find other countries also having a lot of halal meat, but unless specified, you'll find that most Christian restaurants or food chains they don't actually slaughter their animals in the halal way, and hence we must abstain from them. And always think that when we are abstaining from eating such meat, there is a very deep philosophy behind it, and that is now we are not authorized to eat that animal because it was slaughtered by not taking God's permission. So when we slaughter an animal by pronouncing God's name, we actually express that we are doing it from God's permission. So, which in other words tells us that even an animal, which is an animal, of course, the life of an animal is also sacred. It also holds sanctity. So human life, of course, cannot even be thought of, but even an animal's life, if it has to be taken, it must be by seeking God's permission. So this is the most important philosophy that we have to consider. And if we are able to understand this, then we can, at times take pains in finding halal food. And if it's that's not available, at times we have to content ourselves with fish and with vegetables.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Ruhi Rasul, you're up next. Please go ahead.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम सर।
Walaikum assalam.
सर मैंने एक सवाल पूछना था कि जो मुझे काफ़ी परेशान करता है कि जब मैं हज पे गई थी 2018 में, तो जब हम जमरात पर पहुँचे और वो स्टोन्स वग़ैरह जो हमने इकट्ठे किए हुए थे, वो मैंने अपनी व्हीलचेयर थोड़ी-सी पीछे हटा ली और मैं खड़ी हो गई सामने। और वो मैंने पत्थर फेंकने शुरू किए और साथ मेरे मेरे दिल में जैसे गुस्सा था और मैं दिल-दिल में बोलती थी कि तुम थे वो जिसने ऐसा किया, तुम थे वो जिसने ऐसा किया, और साथ अपनी पूरी स्ट्रेंथ के साथ पत्थर फेंकती थी। इसी दौरान में एक पत्थर वापस आकर मेरे होंठ और दाँत के ऊपर लगा। इस चीज़ ने मुझे इतना परेशान किया कि क्या अल्लाह ताला को शैतान के साथ भी इतनी शिद्दत से नफ़रत मंज़ूर नहीं है? تو کیا میں نے شاید میں نے غلط کیا ہے؟
نہیں آپ کو بالکل پریشان ہونے کی ضرورت نہیں ہے. وہ پتھر اگر واپس آیا تو کسی جگہ سے لگ کے واپس آیا ہوگا. ایسا تو نہیں ہے نا کہ لمیہ نے
وہی
کسی بھی راز
جمرات
سے.
کا جو تھا نا
ہاں
پلر، اس
وہ
کے
آپ
ساتھ
قریب،
لگ کے
ہاں آپ قریب کھڑی ہوں گی، وہ لگ کے واپس آ گیا. اگر آپ فاصلے پہ ہوتی تو نہ آتا. تو اس کو میں بالکل آپ ذہن میں آپ خیال نہ لے کے آئیں. وہ بہرحال ایک واقعہ ہے جو ہو گیا ہے. اس میں اس کا کوئی اس سے تعلق نہیں ہے کہ اللہ میاں آپ سے ناراض ہیں یا وہ آپ کو شیطان کو برا بھلا کرنے کے نتیجے میں انہوں نے کوئی آپ کی کوئی سزا دی ہے. ایسا ہرگز نہیں ہے. یہ بس ایک کوئنسیڈنٹلی ایسا معاملہ ہو گیا ہے کہ وہ جگہ ایسی تھی، وہ لگی اور واپس آ گئی. مجھے آپ کی بات سے ایک واقعہ بھی یاد آ گیا. ایک صاحب نے مجھے، ہے تو تھوڑا سا لطیفہ لیکن میں آپ کو سنائے دیتا ہوں فنون تباہ کے لیے. تو یہ ظاہر ہے کہ وہاں لوگ جاتے ہیں تو اسی نیت سے جاتے ہیں کہ شیطان کو وہ کنکریاں ماریں گے اور شیطان کو دشمن سمجھیں گے. سو ایک صاحب تھے، وہ پٹھان تھے، وہ وہاں گئے تو انہوں نے ایک بہت بڑا سوٹا پکڑا ہوا تھا اور سوٹے کے اوپر انہوں نے اپنی جوتی کو لٹکایا ہوا تھا. اور وہ اس کی کافی لمبی وہ ڈور یا رسی کہہ لیجیے. تو وہ ایسا ہلاتے اور اس کو ایسے مارتے جوتے کو، اس کو لگتا وہ پھر ان کے پاس واپس آ جاتا اور بڑے خوش ہوتے کہ میں نے شیطان کو خوب جوتے مارے ہیں. تو یہ شیطان کو جوتے مارنا یا شیطان کے ساتھ اس طرح سے سختی سے بات کرنا، یہ تو عین مطلوب ہے. یعنی یہی تو وہ سمبلزم ہے حج کا کہ آپ وہاں جا رہے ہیں، آپ نے وہ سارے ریچولز کیے، جس کا جو پینیکل ہے، جو منتہائی کمال ہے، وہ یہ رمی ہی ہے، جس میں آپ کہتے ہیں کہ اللہ تعالیٰ میں نے یہ شیطان کے خلاف جو جہاد کو سمبلائز کیا ہے اس حج میں، اب اس کا یہ آخری جو ریچول ہے، اس کا جو آخری رائٹ ہے وہ یہ ہے کہ میں علامتی طور پہ شیطان کو میں کنکر برسا رہا ہوں اور میں عہد کر رہا ہوں کہ میں اب جب زندگی میں واپس جاؤں گا تو شیطان کے اکسانے میں نہیں آؤں گا، بلکہ اپنے ذہن میں اسی طرح سے جب وہ مجھے اکسائے گا تو میں اس کو پتھر ہی ماروں گا. تو یہ ایک بہت بڑی ایک سمبلزم ہے. اگر آپ اس کو اپنے پہ طاری کریں اور اس سمبلزم کو اچھی طرح سوچیں تو آپ دیکھیے کہ یہ آپ کو کتنی اپنی آئندہ زندگی میں مدد دے سکتا ہے. اس وجہ سے آپ اس سے بالکل پریشان نہ ہوں. یہ کوئی ایسا یعنی کوئی ایسی اس کی کوئی توجہ نہیں کی جا سکتی سوائے اس کے کہ جو نظر آ رہی ہے وہ لگ کی چیز واپس آ گئی.
بس تو مجھے یوں محسوس ہوا کہ یہ پتھر شیطان کو لگ کے مجھے واپس آ کے میرے منہ پر لگا ہے. تو اس
ہاں نہیں
چیز
وہ تو دیکھیں پتہ چل گیا نا، اس کی وجہ پتہ چل گئی ہے. ایسا نہیں ہو سکتا کہ
ہاں، میں ویسے
شیطان
قریب
کو
ہی
بھی،
کھڑی تھی. جی
جی ایسا ہی ہوا ہے کہ کسی پتھر کوئی سخت جگہ پہ لگا ہے. اگر جمرات ہی میں کسی کو جمرے کو لگا ہے تو اسی سے لگ کے آپ کے پاس واپس آ گیا. تو یہ کسی بھی
جی
قسم کو آپ اپنا کوئی خیال دل میں نہ لے کے آئیں.
جی سر، تھینک یو سو مچ، شکریہ.
Thank you very much. Ammar Rasul, you're up next. Please go ahead.
السلام علیکم ڈاکٹر صاحب. ڈاکٹر صاحب, in our country, the way that we see, how Muslims, generally speaking, not just in our country but in the region and in the larger ummah as well, it seems like we are, as far as world power and politics is concerned, we are at a very low, pitiful kind of a stage. And always there is this discussion amongst ourselves in our culture, that why has this happened in this way to Muslims at large, and what we have been hearing from our local clergy that we often laugh at is that the only reason that this has happened to us is because we have moved away from true religion. And a lot of very big deal ulama also say this. For example, Maulana Tariq Jameel also says stuff like this, and people like me and other people who understand that it is because of education or democracy or technology or money and power always laugh at this and reject this. So my question is that in the Quran, Allah Ta'ala makes, when he explains his covenant to Bani Israel, he makes this exact point that when you fulfill your covenant with me, I will give you world domination and I will make you powerful over other nations. And so in Surah Baqarah, when the same covenant is cancelled with Bani Israel, but it is made with Bani Ismail, with Bani Ismail, which is Muslims, then by that rule, the same rule should apply to us as well, that if we fulfill God's covenant, God will give Muslims, or at least Bani Ismail, wherever they might be, whoever they might be, world domination. And so when our Maulvi Hazrat, they say that, we are in this pitiful stage because, of our failure to follow true religion, sir, they are not very wrong, are they? I mean, there is some truth to what they are saying, or is it not true?
Well, you see, you have to understand this issue from a number of angles. First of all, I mean, the Bani Ismail or the Banu Ismail, they are, of course, the progeny of Abraham. And with it's basically with the progeny of Abraham, which God, I would say, into which this covenant applies. I mean, it was initially the Israelites and now it's the Ishmaelites. So the progeny of Abraham is basically the addressee of this covenant, and as such, this progeny entered in the covenant that they will not only hold the directives of religion close to them, but also morality. So it's not just religion. A major part of that is justice and morality, and that is something that you can find clearly lacking in the Muslim Ummah. This justice and morality at the social level, at the national level, at the Ummah level, we hardly find this to be the case. So it's basically this justice and morality together with the precepts of religion that if we adhere to, then the Ishmaelites have been given this promise. So it's not just I mean, religion per se, which means that you just read the Quran or you try to follow the Quran. It's basically how you behave as human beings. And we can see very clearly that this is one area in which we have really suffered, and we are on the downward trend. The covenant was when Abraham said that, and when God actually promised Abraham, "Inni ja'iluka lin-nasi imama." So Abraham specifically asked, "Qala wa min zurriyati," and God said, "La yanalu ahdi zalimin," that this promise of mine shall not apply to people who are wrongdoers in any way. So this wrongdoing has to be understood. That this wrongdoing relates to the fact that we don't uphold religion and we don't uphold morality and justice in its true sense. And if we are able to do so, then it is the promise of God that He'll hold the Ishmaelites in high esteem. So this is one element. And other than that, of course, there are other people who are not the Banu Ishmail. They are, or the Banu Ismail. They are common Muslims. So if independently for them, of course, the fact is that for them the law is that in their collective capacity, as you have rightly said, education, science and technology, and of course adhering to collective morality. That is a common sense thing which always elevates a nation. So you have to divide this into two parts. So the Banu Ismail, of course, they are specific. For them, we have just discussed the law for which Abraham was actually made to fulfill this covenant. But for people who are not the Banu Ismail, like for example, we in Pakistan, we are not the Banu Ismail. Yes, we can become relevant to the Banu Ismail if they start behaving the way they should behave. And then when we add or when we come into their, I would say, folds, we will be also promised the same thing. But if they are not doing anything as what was ordained for them, then for us, the only way to rise is, as I said, to do what people do in the world to become great nations. And of course, that is to have that national pride, to have education, economy, democracy, and so many other things that we all know. And that's all just common sense. So you
Sir,
have to
बहुत
divide
शुक्रिया,
this.
thank you.
All of us are not Banu Ismail.
Ji, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. In regards to the question about eating from Christians, we have a follow-up that asks, why is this ruling only for certain animals and not for all of them? So why can we still eat fish, for example?
You see, fish, I mean, for them, it's like a concession because normally we don't slaughter fish. When the fish comes out of the sea or the lake or wherever it is, it dies a natural death. So that is why a concession has been given. However, if in the case of the fish also, when we cut open the fish, if we pronounce Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, that is fine. But it's not made an obligation. However, in the case of land animals, where the act of slaughter is very direct, it has an impact. It's directly in front of you. You're slaughtering an animal. It's not dying on its own accord. So it is here that takbir has been made essential. For sea animals, they die normally, as I said, when they are deprived of their natural habitat, which is water.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Just a quick follow-up. Does the slaughtering only imply that that's the only time where you have to say Bismillah Allahu Akbar, or is that for any life that you take?
No, it's for slaughtering. I mean, what other life do we take?
No,
I
like if
mean,
you're
yes, at times we have to kill.
sometimes if you have to
At times,
dissect, for example, animals or
yeah. So that's not required at that time. It
All right. So our next question is from Shabnam. Please go ahead.
जी थैंक यू मरियम सर मैं अभी आपने वो एक पार्टिसिपेंट के जो जमरात में उनके साथ हुआ इंसिडेंट उन्हें आपने बहुत अच्छा राइटली गाइड किया सर मैं परेशान नहीं किसी को करना चाह रही लेकिन आई नो अंडरस्टैंड कि शैतान से नफरत इज रिक्वायर्ड सर मेरी अपनी जिंदगी में जब कुछ सिंबॉलिक कुछ होता है तो आई डू थिंक कि अल्लाह ताला मुझे किस तरफ गाइड करना चाह रहे हैं कोई टू रिकंसिडर समथिंग और माय लाइन ऑफ एक्शन में भी तो मैं ना चाहते हुए भी ऐसे सोच लेती हूँ और अक्सर मेरी जो सोच होती है वो ठीक ही होती है तो सर क्या ये हो सकता है कि अगर मेरे साथ ऐसा हो मैं जाऊं तो और मैं बहुत ब्लेम कर रही हूँ शैतान को हर चीज के लिए तो अल्लाह ताला मुझे गाइड करना चाह रहे हो कि कुछ फ्लॉज हमारे नफ्स में भी होते हैं या बाज़ औक़ात हमारा जो लाइन ऑफ एक्शन है उसमें अल्लाह ताला हमें गाइड करना चाह रहे हैं कि उसमें भी फ्लॉज हो सकते हैं तो सर ऐसे सोचना ठीक है कि नहीं
देखिए, आपको अपना तजिया हर हाल में करना ये देखना है कि जो आपका जो इस वक्त सूरत हाल दरपेश है वो सूरत हाल में आपने भी तो एक प्लानिंग की है और एक वो है जो खुदा की तरफ से है तो इस वजह से वो तजिया है कि जो बेसिकली इस चीज़ की तरफ आपकी तरफ रहनुमाई करेगा लेकिन बाद में ऐसा होता है कि हम उस तजिया को करते हैं और उसके बावजूद हमें सही अंदाज़ा नहीं हो पाता तो वहाँ हमें ये देखना चाहिए कि अल्लाह ताला की जो प्लानिंग है हमारे लिए शायद कि जो हो सकता है कि हमें एक और सिमत में लेके जा रही है जिसको हम जाना नहीं चाह रहे थे और उस केस में बाद में ऐसा भी होता है कि अल्लाह ताला ने क्योंकि आजमाइश के रसूल को ज़िंदगी को बनाया है दुनिया को बनाया है तो शैतान हो या आपका नफ्स हो वो बहुत सारी ऐसी ख्वाहिशात आपके अंदर पैदा कर देता है जिसके नतीजे में आप एक गलत तर्जे की तरफ चले जाते हैं और ये खुद एक आजमाइश ही का एक प्रिंसिपल है तो वहाँ देखिए
जी
रसूल यही है आप एनालिसिस
राइट
करें जितना भी बेरहम तरीके से और स्ट्रैटेजी जो आपने अडॉप्ट की है उसका भी और फिर बस अल्लाह पे भरोसा करके काम करें
जी सर थैंक यू सो मच सर
Thank you very much. Ammar Rasul, you're up next. Please go ahead.
Sir, this is a question. It's a slightly longer question, but if thank you. So anyway, so my question is that a few sessions ago, you were commenting or reading through some passages of the Quran, which seemed to me like the idea of collective punishment, in the sense that you spoke about an incident where Bani Israel were asked to go into a city and fight or engage in battle, but they refused because they were afraid, and so the punishment for that was given to the next generation as well. Whereas, generally speaking, our understanding is that every person or every soul carries their own burden, and the punishment or of the sin is not passed on to the next generation. So that's my first question, but it is a longer question because I want to ask that the Quran is very clear about individual sin. Like, for example, if a man kills another man, a human being kills another human being, then definitely there is punishment for that in this world and the next as well. But what happens when a corporation kills? There has been an incident very recently in America where a guy whose mother was killed because the insurance company was not paying the insurance that they were owed, and so she could not get the medical help, and she died because of not getting insurance, and the man went ahead and murdered the CEO of that insurance company. This happened in America very recently. My question is, how does Islam see that person who was the CEO and who was killing people due to his negligence or his willful dishonesty, left, right, and center? And sir, the last part of this question is I want to ask, how does it apply to nations? if there is a colonial project where one race goes into another part of the world and they commit genocide on that those people. I'm not talking about Israel and Palestine right now. I'm talking about what happened to the Red Indians in North America. I'm talking about what happened to the Aborigines in Australia or New Zealand or other such places. And yet, when such sins at mass scale happen, their generations after generations after generations live in those lands in happiness and joy and development. How does religion and obviously those generations who are living in those lands which have been stolen and local populations have been killed, those are the beneficiaries of that sin in a way, indirectly. How does religion see all of this? So my question is about collective punishment. Thank you very much, sir.
You see, the question that we have asked basically relates to the dispensation of justice or the lack of it. You see, whenever you see any injustice, whether it is by a corporation, an organization, a country, or you can just enlarge the scope as much as you can. It is the question of injustice that has been suffered by people, and if there is any appropriate forum to redress that. For example, there is this International Court of Justice, ICJ, as they call it in The Hague, today, where people can take their cases, and so on and so forth. So people in different times have created different forums, and it is just in the last century or so when we had the League of Nations in the First World War, and now we have the United Nations after the Second World War, and as I just said, ICJ, which address these collective issues. So, I mean, religion is going to just direct you to seek justice from any appropriate forum. And if that is something that is not required in this world, then precisely this is what entails that sufferer or the people who suffered will be compensated way, way more than what they suffered in the hereafter. So that is precisely why a day of judgment has been kept. That there are many, many evils. Look at what Hitler did in the last century, and look at many other such conquerors who kill people mercilessly. They burnt them at the stake. They committed other crimes against humanity. And this has been happening ever since time immemorial, I would say. So either you address this issue on a collective forum and get justice, whatever that forum could be. And if that is not something that you can acquire in this world, then just rest assured that the culprits will be severely dealt with in the hereafter, and the people who have suffered will be compensated to such an extent that they will feel that they have been not only given justice, but they have been rewarded for their suffering as well. So that is the principal stance of it.
Sir, I asked you also about the incident of Bani Israel, where the next generation was also punished for the cowardice of the previous generation.
For the Israelites, the law was a different law. And this has been mentioned in the Torah that their progeny in the next 7 generations will suffer the crimes of their forefathers. This has been mentioned in the Torah. Again, this is because of the specific situation and the specific nature of Banu Ibrahim. So for the Banu Ibrahim, it was this in the this particular law, because it was given this I would say this public responsibility, so to speak, was given in their collective capacity. So if their forefathers were guilty of some crime, and they had the ability or the wherewithal or the power to redress that, and they did not redress it, then they became accomplices to the same crime. And on that principle, the Quran says that Torah says that they'll be punished for next 7 generations. So we don't know whether the 7th word is correct or not, because that's a translation in the current copies of the Torah. It could have been more, it could have been less. But the principle is the same, that because of the fact that they were given a collective responsibility, for people who come after them, if they become accomplices to the same crime, then they'll be punished in the same way as well.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Just a small request. Is it possible to increase your audio somehow because it's been very low?
Try to little louder because our equipment is slowly giving way because now we don't have any light now, and the next thing is that our UPS has also gone out, our backup has also gone out, so we have a very little bit backup left that can cater for the voice. So, but nevertheless, I'll try to speak a little louder.
Thank you very much. And for the participants that are still having trouble hearing, if you turn on your captions, this was a wonderful suggestion by Omar. Thank you very much for the suggestion. Then I hope that will help you pick up on whatever Dr. Saleem is saying. And we have a bunch of chat questions, so we'll take these. And if we still have time remaining, we'll come over to the raised hands. This one question asks, are poets given some kind of relaxation by Islam if their words should be treated differently? And what is your opinion on poets like Maulana Rumi and Dr. Iqbal? Some people present them as religious scholars on another level, and some present them as mushriks because of some part of their poetry.
Well, I always refrain from commenting on the hereafter or the fate of people. What I can say is that if you ask me about a particular view that these gentlemen have presented and they're very learned people, I can comment on the view, but I just cannot comment on a person because that is not my domain, that's God's domain. So what I can say is that if you ask about me about maybe a certain view of Maulana Rum or a certain view of Dr. Iqbal or maybe any other poet, I can give you my view of that view or my critique of that view. So I just cannot give a holistic view of a person because I think that this is God's domain and we should not enter this domain.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. The next question asks, as a non-Muslim, I fail to understand why is it prohibited for Muslims to consume pork? Why not apply the same slaughter process of seeking permission from God and then slaughtering the animal just as you do for chickens and cows, etc.?
You see, there are two things which that must not be mixed up. The animals which have been allowed by religion to be consumed and to be eaten, are ones which are generally herbivorous. They consume vegetation, and so and they don't pounce on their prey, and they have a generally docile nature, like the cow or maybe the goats or the sheep, the camel. So these are rather docile animals. They graze on grass mostly, and it is such animals that have been allowed. And the reason is that whatever we eat, it has an impact on our habits and on our disposition over a longer period of time. So if we eat such animals, it keeps us, more in a docile situation or a docile disposition, I would say. However, animals which are carnivorous, aggressive, and which tear apart their prey by their claws or by their teeth, they have been prohibited because again, savage animals, if you eat them, like for example, if you eat the lion or the tiger, in the first place it will be difficult for you to even domesticate them. But let us suppose that if you eat such animals and you end up eating such animals, then you see, whatever you eat, as I just said, it's going to have an effect on your own habits and your own disposition. So if you eat carnivorous animals that tear apart their prey, then the aggression and I would say the savagery which is found in these animals is bound to be transferred into human beings as well. Now, what happens is that about pork, if you look up, you see it's an archaeodactyl. So archaeodactyl are also an omnivore, which means that it consumes both vegetation and also consumes meat. So the question is, should it be regarded as a herbivore or a carnivore? Should it be regarded as a meat-eating animal or a vegetation-eating animal? So because regarding other animals, we are sure that, for example, cows are not carnivorous, lions are not herbivorous because lions don't eat grass and cows don't eat meat and they don't pounce upon their prey. So we have very distinct lines drawn, and about such animals we can decide very clearly. So about the pig, the question was that because it is of both dispositions, it has a herbivorous disposition and it has a carnivorous disposition. So should we eat it or not? So it is here that the Almighty guided us and told us that its carnivorous disposition, which is The savagery in it dominates the docility which is generally found in a herbivorous animal. So that is the reason, and that it stands forever.
Thank you very much.
Offering the way that we look at. So that is another institute of consuming animals. The Almighty says that all those animals which are conducive to eating, and the Quran says, "Uhilla lakum at-tayyibat." The tayyibat are allowed, and the khaba'is, which are those animals which are not conducive to eating, they are not allowed. And the Quran also says that I am not going to provide you with a list of such animals because our nature, human nature, knows which animals are conducive for eating and which are not. But as in the case with the pig, there could have been some confusion whether we should consume it or not. Yes, consuming it because it also has a herbivorous nature, it eats vegetation, or should we not consume it because it has a carnivorous disposition that it eats meat. So because this confusion could have arisen and we could not have maybe had a litmus test or maybe a decisive word as to which of these two dispositions should we go with. So that is why the Almighty guided us and said that, well, you might not be able to come to the conclusion, the right conclusion. So I'm going to tell you that its carnivorous nature dominates its herbivorous nature, and hence it stands prohibited.
So, in the case of chickens, where they're also omnivores, does that mean that their herbivorous nature dominates their carnivorous nature?
So we have to understand it's not just the carnivorous nature, it is eating meat in a way that you pounce on your prey and you tear it apart with your claws or with your teeth. So it's not just the act of consuming meat, it's the act in which you acquire that meat. So lions, of course, they tear apart their prey. Sharks, they do the same. Vultures, they do the same. But of course, chickens, they don't do the same.
Thank you for that clarification, Dr. Saleem. The next question asks, in Islam, divine revelation through the Quran is considered the ultimate source of truth. As an atheist who relies on empirical evidence and reason, how can one assess the claim that the Quran is of divine origin rather than a product of human authorship?
The Quran itself has presented a barometer, you can say, or a yardstick to check whether it is of human origin or divine origin. And that is mentioned in the Quran in Surah Nisa, where it says, لَوْ كَانَ مِنْ عِنْدِ غَيْرِ اللَّهِ لَوَجَدُوا فِيهِ اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا, which means that had it been from someone other than God, you would have found a number of discrepancies. So the distinction between human and divine discourse is that human discourses in books and authorships, the thing that they author, they are replete with discrepancies. They also have evolution of thought. They would accept a certain premise in one period of their life, and then they would realize that it is wrong, and they would correct it and go on to another. So it's like an evolution that all authors in the human domain go through, and of course discrepancies. It is because of these discrepancies that they revise their previous views. So the Quran says that it is itself, something of divine origin. You just need to find any discrepancy. If you do so, then of course you can regard to be a human product. And it claims about itself that there is not a single discrepancy. So ever since this claim of the Quran, people have tried their best to come up to this challenge and try to maybe point out to some discrepancies in the Quran. But if you look at some of the works that have been done and the answers that have been given, you'll find that they don't in any way come up to the mark. And as far as I know, as a person or as a student of the Quran for the last 35 years, I haven't come across a single discrepancy. And this is not just my experience, but the experience of many students of the Quran. So I think this is the yardstick. That an atheist should understand that all human discourses, they are fraught with discrepancies and, of course, the evolution of thought. And this is not the case with the Quran. What the Quran said on the first day, it said on the last day. And whatever it presented as a proof the first day, it continued till the last day. It was revealed in 22 years. And in all these long years, there was not a single instance in which this discrepancy was found.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Our next question asks, there's a hadith that says that a woman is married for 4 reasons: religion, wealth, lineage, and beauty. And you should marry her looking at her religion. So, what does that mean by looking at her religion? On what basis will a girl's religion be calculated? And is it forbidden to look at a girl's house, education, and beauty? If you could please answer in Urdu. Thank you.
देखिए इस सवाल का जवाब ये है कि ये सिर्फ एक रिकमेंडेशन के तौर पे बताया है कि जब आप शादी करते हैं तो आप बहुत सारे देखते हैं रीजंस कि भाई खुद शक्ल है या एजुकेटेड है या प्रोफेशनल है, तो कहा गया कि इसके साथ साथ आप ये भी देखें कि उनका मिजाज दीनी है कि नहीं। यानी अगर आपके पास ये सारी कंडीशन सेटिस्फाई हो रही हैं जो आपके जहन में है, लेकिन वो एक दीनी मिजाज की बात नहीं है, आप ये समझ लीजिए कि इसको अल्लाह ताला की कोई खास परवाह नहीं है। दीनी मिजाज का क्या मतलब होता है? इसका मतलब ये होता है कि आप अपनी ज़मीर की आवाज़ को लब्बैक कहते हैं। इसका मतलब ये होता है कि आप एक खुदा को मानते हैं और उस खुदा के आगे झुक जाते हैं। लेकिन अगर कोई खातून बाकी सब बस साफ रखती है, लेकिन ये एक तन्हा चीज़ उसके अंदर नहीं है, तो आपको ये कहा गया है कि आप ऐसी खातून को अपनी घर ना लाएँ, क्योंकि उसके नतीजे में आप जो औलाद पैदा करेंगे वो भी बेदीन होने का उसका इम्कान है और आपकी बीवी का आप पे भी असर हो सकता है। तो ये एक रिकमेंडेशन है कि आप जैसे बहुत सारी चीज़ों को देखते हैं, वैसे दीन को भी एक ट्रेडिशन बनाएँ और दीन से जैसे मैंने कहा बात यही है कि उसको अपनी ज़मीर की आवाज़ के मुताबिक ज़िंदगी गुज़ारें, खुदा की वहदानियत पर यकीन रखें और उसके आगे सर काम करें।
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Noshad Shafkat, you're up next. Please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Sahab. Dr. Sahab, I would like to know about what are the religious injunctions about graves of your parents, your grandparents. How are to be there? How are they to be maintained? Because some people don't, keep the graves. Some people keep very posh graves. What is the Islamic point of view on that?
I mean, there's nothing that has been recommended. It's entirely your own choice. You can have the grave cemented. You can have the grave in the mud form, and even after let's say 3 generations or 4 generations, and people who know the person who was deceased, they no longer exist. If you just finish that grave off and have someone other buried in that grave, that is also fine. Similarly, there's your choice whether you like to bury your dead in a graveyard that has other denominations as well, or just a Muslim graveyard. So I mean, it's something that is entirely on your choice. Just one recommendation which we can derive from the Prophet is that people who are really revered personalities, especially in religion, it's recommended that don't make a mausoleum or a shrine of them, because there is a chance that people will end up revering them even more and start prostrating on their graves as well. So that is a recommendation for people who are very God-oriented and who are well known in their life as very pious people, and who were also the source of inspiration to many people, and many people have come to. So because of there's a chance that once that person passes away, people will show more reverence, and even more reverence, and might elevate them. So this directive has been given that it is better not to cement or make a sodium just trying to get there. Other than that, normal people like us, it's absolutely our choice how we maintain their faith.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Ammar Rasul, please go ahead.
Ji, Assalamu alaikum. Dr. Sahab, if memory serves me right, and it might not be serving me right at the same time, I heard Ghamidi Saab some time back in a video saying that Hazur Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, while he was praying and somebody came along and he wanted to give that person some instructions, so even so during his prayer he gave him the instruction and then continued with his prayer without stopping the prayer or restarting it. So I wanted to ask, is that permissible, that if I'm praying and somebody comes into my room and I want to give them some instruction about something, I can just do that and also continue with my prayer?
So this is not the right thing to do at the moment, because what the Hadith mentioned was that initially the Prophet and the companions were given this latitude that they could converse during the prayer for something that is very compelling and important, but later on they were stopped from doing it. So we have an explicit mention of this prohibition as well. So you might be reading out some hadiths. You know that there were hadiths that say that initially the companion and the Prophet would also reply to questions during the prayer, but later on they were stopped from doing it. So the same directive will continue, and today, I mean, we have to continue to concentrate on the prayer and we pray our prayer. I mean, the only logical reason that comes to my mind for this would be that for some emergency, for example, if you have a visitor at the door, there's no one to attend to him or her, or maybe there's some emergency, some medical emergency in your own house that you might, if you complete your prayer, let's say for 2 o'clock, will go and help that person out and come back and finish off the prayer. Otherwise, normal procedure would be for any such thing that you just break your prayer, do that thing that you need to do, come back, and then offer the complete prayer.
All right, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. I had a question in regards to Hajj. So, like for Jamarat, you said the idea is that we are throwing the stones at the shaitan, or like where the shaitan used to be, to symbolize our sort of anger towards it. I just find like in the future when I go, I don't think I'll be able to be angry at someone I haven't met, or like, you know, you live your life and you're like, okay, I made these bad decisions, or I'm doing this wrong and I need to improve myself. I don't think that I'm like actively blaming shaitan for everything that I'm doing, and I don't think I could find it in me to get angry at it. Do you have to be angry?
If you read the Quran, then you'll be really angry because Satan said that God, you led me astray, that now to give me respite, and I'm going to sit in ambush for all the people that think that they are going to follow you, and I'm going to lead them astray. And I'm going to come from their left and from their right, and I'll do this and I'll do that. So he's the declared enemy of God. And he has declared his animosity with God. And God, for some reason, in spite of his animosity, said, okay, I grant you this respite, and I give you the opportunity to lead astray people, but people who are God-oriented, people who are dedicated to me, they'll not be led away by you. So this is a challenge that we threw to God. So basically, the anger that puts in ourselves is, the source of that anger is that we actually challenge God in the very beginning, and so God actually, it's a war that started between Satan and God, and of course it extended to God's people as well. So even if you're not directly someone who has encountered in any way those sensations or the whole scenario, you know from history that he is the first enemy of humankind. And whether you know it or not, he's planting himself everywhere. He has his progeny, he has his associates and accomplices who are here and there. And a lot of things that we do are ones that have a source as Satan. And we might not know that. You see, it is because of the fact that we know it is line of attack. If the Quran says it, that he whispers evil suggestions in our hearts, and we at times succumb to these suggestions. So, and if you are aware of all this history and all these details, then you can never be happy with Satan. I can assure you, and you can never be soft-hearted towards him. You will feel that anger and that, I would say, your own distaste and dislike. That he was the first person or the first being who challenged God, and he's continuing to do that. And God said that, okay, you do what you would like to do, but when you come back to me, I'm going to consign you to hell, and all those who follow you. You see, we have the whole picture of Satan in front of us, his whole history and his modus operandi. So that is why I think that if you are aware of all these things, then certainly when you pick up those stones and throw it at the Jamarat, you'll have that feeling that I am symbolically telling that person or that being that I'm not going to succumb to your desires or your wishes or your plots or your schemes.
Thank you very much for that clarification, Dr. Saleem. And thank you for this session. Although we couldn't have our usual Mizan lecture series, but turning this into a Q&A so we could ask our questions was really helpful, I'm sure, to all of us, all the participants here. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to do this. And thanks so much to all the participants for bearing with this whole situation. It's always, last minute changing the plan is a bit hard. So thank you for bearing with it and bearing with the technical issues. Inshallah, we'll see you all tomorrow in another session of textual study of the Quran. And hopefully, Dr. Saleem, I hope you're safe and everybody around you is safe. Inshallah, storm doesn't do too much damage. And with that, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone.